Hello everyone, my name is Allison Cohen, and I'm a classroom teacher and member of the Board of Directors of Street Law. And today it is my pleasure to sit down with Patrick Campbell. Patrick, you've been on the board for 25 years now. I think that's as long as I've been in the classroom. And so today, as Street Law celebrates 50 years, I couldn't think of anyone who I would want to share their experience as much as you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And Patrick, your experience with street law dates back to your time as a high school student, right here in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. I was a recent immigrant when I attended Coolidge High School. I had moved from Kingston, Jamaica at the tender age of 14 and showed up at this American high school not knowing anything about what my life would become or could become. My mom was a dressmaker back in Jamaica. My dad, he was a businessman, but not in any business that I was sort of familiar with or had any idea in terms of what I wanted to do. I always knew I wanted an office job. I used to take the inside door handle of old cars and pretend it's my telephone, and then I had a desk, because I didn't have a telephone growing up, so that was my idea of an office was a flat surface and a telephone. And so when I went to high school, I had no idea that law was even something that I could consider as a career or really anything. I mean, I thought it would be a business type role perhaps for my life, but I just had no idea. So street law was definitely transformational in that respect.
So Patrick, tell me a little bit about how you even found out about the street law class in your high school. So as a classroom teacher, I'm particularly interested in the role that the teacher played in helping you to think about what your future might look like.
Yes, that's a great question. So the summer before my junior year in high school, I had an accident. I was on my bicycle riding along in Northwest DC, and I got hit by a car, rolled forward, several feet, and broke my left leg. And so it was a pretty bad accident. I could have died, but ended up just with the broken leg. I had a cast on for the rest of that summer, and started the school year in the cast. And for some reason, I guess maybe because I came from Jamaica, I didn't really know what classes I should be looking to take. I was signed up for junior ROTC. Don't ask me why, but somehow I found myself in an ROTC class. And I'm sitting in an ROTC class on the first day, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I don't want to join the Army. I don't want to do ROTC. But being sort of a good student, I just sat there and allowed the class to end. And at the end of the class, because I was now on crutches in a cast, I went to the ROTC instructor because other teachers didn't allow me to use the elevator to go up and down the stairs based on my crutches. And so I went to the instructor and I said, would you mind opening the elevator for me so that I can go up the stairs? He refused. He said, no, tough it out. So I toughed it out all the way to my guidance counselor's office and said, get me out of ROTC. I'm not taking that class. And I remember the moment like it was yesterday. Her name was Miss Page. And she sat at her desk and she pulled out a big binder. And she was flipping through electives. And she was just and she said, well, there's this class called Street Law that looks like interesting. And I said, it sounds better than ROTC anyway. And so that's
she might open the elevator for you.
Exactly, and she opened the elevator for me. And so that's how I got to the street law class. And it literally transformed everything. It was an incredible class. I remember the teachers. The name of my classroom teacher was Miss Schumann, who was a really wonderful person and mentor for me. She actually also coached its academic team, which I was also on. And the two Georgetown instructors were Grace Kim and Dora Kaufman. I remember them so many years ago. And that's how I found the class, and I just sort of took to it.
Is that what sparked your interest in law?
Absolutely. I had never thought of law as a career before that. And the thing about street law that was fascinating to me was just how empowering it was. here was a class that was teaching me practical things that could affect my life on a day-to-day basis. For example, landlord-tenant law, right? We were living in an apartment at the time, right? There may have been times when we were late with our rent. All of a sudden, I started understanding that, well, my landlord can't just kick us out. That felt empowering to know that, right? You would be surprised at how little people know about their rights and empowered by it. And it felt like a tool that I could use to improve not only my life, but the life of my family, the life of people around me. And so it right away just gave me a whole different perspective on life.
And I can't think of the number of teachers who are just craving the ability to provide that for their students.
Absolutely, no, and
Right,
I think that's right. And in fact, having the Georgetown teachers take an interest in us as high school students, even though it was part of their sort of clinical program, but it felt like more nurturing than other classes, right? Here were these two outsiders who were not school teachers, but they were there to teach and they were there to help. And they were a little bit closer to our age, at least than the other teachers, and it just felt like a natural sort of relationship that we could develop. And the culmination of it for me was the mock trial, which definitely sealed the deal. Because in the mock trial, you could actually pretend to be a lawyer, and you could actually walk into a real courtroom in front of a real judge and present witnesses and opening argument and closing. It was an incredible experience, and that was, I think, the final straw that convinced me that becoming a lawyer would be my own path.
And that it was a possibility.
Well, you don't really see, in certain communities, you don't really see examples. You don't see others who look like you who are doing that. I remember one comment that the judge in our mock trial made when he said, you guys are doing better than a lot of lawyers that actually come into my courtroom. And whether he meant it or not, or how he meant it, didn't matter. It was empowering to hear a judge say that to you as a high school student, that you are demonstrating skills, techniques, strategy that is better in some respects than actual lawyers. I mean, what better way to inspire someone to follow a career path than to essentially give them that confidence that you can do this, right? This is something that's within your reach. And so having those kind of sort of positive role models and people who are encouraging really made a huge difference,
50 years from now, where do you see street law going in a way that will build upon what we've already done, but still be open to a future that is even larger in scope than we see right now?
My vision of street law is that we become a household name, that it be an organization that rolls off the tongue as one that is really on the forefront of diversity, equity, and inclusion, one that is critical to empowering young people, and one that is really focused on dealing with a changing world and shifting and changing with that world.
So Patrick, one of the things that I've noticed in my classroom, and it's kind of heartbreaking, I have conversations with my students all of the time about controversial topics, political topics, topics that are being discussed on the nightly news, on any number of social media platforms, and without exception, the one thing that my students articulate is their disgust with the way political conversations happen on social media,
Yep.
on some of our news outlets.
Yes.
And they are absolutely craving a space where they can have a productive conversation about these difficult topics.
Yeah.
And no one is pretending that they aren't difficult.
Yeah.
I find that my students are better able to have those conversations than
Yes.
some adults in my life.
Yes.
And I use street law materials to
Yes.
facilitate those conversations.
Yes.
And the extent to which they appreciate a space
Yes.
where the focus is on advancing about a solution, a compromise to a topic,
Yes. Yes.
as opposed to this divisive, I'm right and anyone who disagrees with me is
Yeah.
morally corrupt.
Yes. Yes.
They're craving a sense of agency.
Yes.
They're craving a sense of shared commitment
Yes.
to making this grand experiment work.
Yes.
And part of that is, like I said, the
Yeah.
ability to have conversations about these difficult topics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, nothing bothers me more than when young people feel powerless.
Yeah.
When they feel as if the system is happening sort of around them and to them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they don't have a voice, they don't have a say, they don't have any way of impacting the things that are happening. And that's, I think, where street law comes in.
Great. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for joining
you.
us this afternoon, and it was such a pleasure to talk to you.